Welcome to Subramani. I'm going to talk to you about a topic on which you won't find too many videos. This is how is the life of an equity analyst. I can assure you it's not some great life, definitely not at the beginning of your life. When 1980s, when we started, the junior most analyst's job was to make sure that all the balance sheets which the firm needs, which the analyst company needs, I used to run a research company, have to be kept in the proper place. So if there is a Tata Steel balance sheet, there have to be 5 copies in the sense last 5 years balance sheet in the same place. Then there has to be a file in which you cut paste articles about Tata Steel, and you kept that file updated. That was such a painful, monotonous job, but you could get some young boys and girls to do it, and that they were not the qualified people, but they still had to do it. And then you had to create a classification, because you'd say, okay, this is in the Tata Steel file, but if it is going to talk about refractories, somewhere you have to get a reference and say, oh, refractories pe ek article aaya tha, and that is in the Tata Steel file. It may have been in another file also, right? So there is another sale, it could be in the sale file, it could be anywhere, because it's a steel related item. So creating the database and keeping it in one location was a huge, humongous task sometime in the 1980s, and some companies whom you went and met, they would happily give you their balance sheet. Some companies would not give, so you had to write to them and take it. If you're based in Bombay, you were lucky that most of the companies would be somewhere around, you could get somebody to go and get it. Some companies would do natak saying, oh, you're not a shareholder, so then in such cases you have to go and buy some shares. Now you couldn't buy one share because there was a market lot problem. So then you have to buy 10 shares or 500 shares or it would normally be either 10 shares or 100 shares. So you have to buy that quantity if you wanted the balance sheet. Depending on what, if the client was a bank who was saying, I want a research report on this, then you had to do that. Then there would be banks would say, Acha, I want on all the competitors also. Now, how do you define competition? Because the bank couldn't define competition. Banker would say, okay, this is the company and I want some gyan on the competitor also. So you then said, okay, this company is making steel rolls, this is making flats. Do you want them compared? Would you know whether to compare them? And is Nagpur alloy and casting is it a competitor to Tata Steel? Please tell me, because the sizes don't match, right? So it was not very easy as an analyst in the 1980s. Some companies you go to would share all their data. They'd say, okay, here is our analysis which we sent to the bank, which meant you save 2-3 days of calculating all the ratios. Otherwise, all these ratios which are today available at the flip of a button, at the flick of a button, were not available to us so easily. We had to sit and create. Cash flow was not available. Cash flow statement was not available. I'm sure going ahead they will ask the company to also provide ratios, etc. in the balance sheet. But today it doesn't matter. Once you have a soft copy, creating it is not so difficult, and now some data may be available in XBRL also. I have not used it, but I heard it's a useful format. But today anyway, there are enough websites, screeners, which will give you all the ratios, and all the basic hygiene is taken care of. When we got Orkay and Reliance, we had to see that one was giving data in kg, one was giving in meters. So converting that, I always used to ask, when a young fresh analyst came for an interview, I would tell him, you got the balance sheet of General Motors, Tata Motors and Toyota, how will you start comparing? So they would say, oh, we would compare this, we would compare that. I would say, what would be the first step? And they would not have an answer. And the first step would be to convert all of them into the same language, right? Everything has to be in English, and everything in English in mathematics means all the currencies have to be the same. Everything has to be in dollars, rupees, yen. These are 3 currencies. So you have to first convert. That conversion used to take a lot of time. Today I'm sure you can get it at one button and you can get it. I don't know, I have not seen the Toyota balance sheet in Japanese. I am talking about if the balance sheet is available in English, life becomes easier. You can straight away go to the common size statements that you will make, and then start comparing and then calculate the ratios. Today I'm sure that is also available, so it may not be very difficult. And Tata Motors is a far more complicated company today than it was in the 1980s when we were tracking it, right? So those were the challenges. But the challenges for an employee in a fund house or in any place where money is being managed, he always had a CIO, and so many CIOs were greedy, some CIOs were outright corrupt. And I'm not talking of big mutual funds, I'm talking of smaller houses where money was managed. There were people who were managing other people's money, like an employee managing promoter money who was corrupt, and then therefore he said, "Acha, humko is pe report bana ke do." And bana ke do means you always had to be favoring that person. Like if I go and tell my analyst, "Acha, I want to buy Himachal Futuristic, please make a report," he's bound to make a good report because I've already created bias in him. He knows I want to buy, right? There have been CIOs who have been hand in league with the promoter. They get the promoter to own very little. These people come in, buy big share, then they rig the share price from the issue price to 10x and 15x, and then the analyst has to make a report at every price saying this is a good share at 25, this is a good share at 50, this is a good share at 500, this is a good share at 2000, because the same set of people are rigging and holding the price high, right? What do you do? What do you do as an analyst, right? So what do you expect an analyst to do? Well, if he's in a small company, he's expected to track about 1,000 stocks and find a good one, and this he has to do through a lot of scan the universe for banking, for insurance, for biotech, pharma, and entertainment, banking, and he's sitting there or she is sitting there with so much of data from which to pick up a portfolio. It's not very simple for the analyst, and the cheapest way of hiring a person is to say, "Oh, you will be an equity analyst." Kids will happily give up that, give up a premium. Now imagine I walk into one of the top institutes or even to the Institute of Chartered Accountants for recruiting chartered accountants, and I tell them, "Look, you will have to do sales of credit cards." Do you think they will want to come? The answer is no. But if I tell them, "Come and I will let you do equity research," of course they will all jump because they think they are going to learn. Of course they are going to learn, but how many of them from analysts will become fund managers? That's far more difficult. It is much easier to be in sales and become the CEO than to be in research and become a CIO, right? There are not enough number of CIOs needed. There are not enough number of research analysts for whom there will be demand after a particular stage. You will be with a broking company, you will be with a mutual fund, and then you will go and join Agora. That is how you evolve. But that's it. If you don't take that route, and they won't be hiring you when the markets are bad, so you have to always hope for a great market to be hired. But this, of course, has been a long bull run, so there's good chances of being hired. The business analyst has to try to understand auto, software, entertainment, power, and technology, banking, insurance, and that's not really easy. I have asked an analyst to analyze Tata Power, not now, 5-6 years ago, and took him a very long time. Of course, the benefit was he went and bought it, then he sold it, then he bought it again. Now at 40 bucks, he's made a lot of money. And he met me and he said, "The fact that you asked me to do research on Tata Power was so good because I've been tracking that company since then and I made a lot of money, much more than what I would have got as fees if I had sold my report." Right? So there are, of course, an advantage that you create your own portfolio on the side when you do equity research. But that is not a job, that is not something which is available to the research guy working in an insurance, working in a mutual fund or in an insurance company or any fund management company, right? So that option is not there. And the worst thing is if the promoter is talking to you very nicely after 4 days of your asking him questions, you have really missed something. If the promoter does not get angry at you for asking a question, maybe a stupid question, and if he does not get angry, you go and do your homework again. This meeting has to end now, right? So you have to ask some questions which are irritating, which may be very difficult. It brings out the beast in him. Then you have touched the right question. And that's how I've always judged any research guy. I talk to the promoter and he will shout and scream and say, "Oh, this has happened, that has happened," and then I go and read the report. I don't read the report before I speak to the promoter. I want to know what the promoter thinks. Even if the promoter thinks my research person had done a great job, to me that's a red signal, right? So This is the life of equity analyst.